Okay, we're live again. Thank you for sticking with me through the break. It is time to get into part 2 of the stream of the 2.5 parts, maybe 3 depending on how long it goes. I wanted to stream until about 3 a.m. and this part, I don't know, we'll see how long it takes to go. Offhand, Bobicus, I couldn't tell you since I haven't, besides Curse of Strahd, I haven't read or run the other mods that are out there because I've been running my own custom game forever, and the one I play in instead of run, it's 4th edition. Let's see, in chat, what do you think of the Tales reprint campaigns? Oh, from the Yawning Portal? Shadzar makes a point, AD&D and 5e are not compatible in mechanics, though if you pick up an old book, a story's a story. That could be a test for you as a DM. Can you convert an old AD&D module to 5th edition? Take the characters and, rework them. Roll something up. Goodman Games, Into the Unknown is going to be overpriced. Goodman Games does put out a lot of good, like, old style content. They do the Dungeon Delver Classics. That's good stuff to look into. Certainly for free RPG day. Looks like the cat's back. You can go and you can pick that stuff up. Okay, anyway. Let's get it going. Now, this is the first time that we're going to be doing something that's directly out of the DMG, though we can still treat it like we're building a character. A town, as a storyteller, as the DM, is a character in your story. It has a personality of its own. It has a liveliness. It has a culture. Things work in particular ways. Towns are lawful. Towns are chaotic. Towns can be evil. Towns can be good, generally. And so a lot of what we have for our random character generator can be applied towards town making, or over here, where I have this scan DMG. In the early 100s, they have a section on randomly generating wilderness, strongholds, talking about mods, Keep on the Borderlands comes to mind. Talks about weather and extremes, foraging. So yeah, you may be a good survivalist, kind of like what our last PC was that we generated, but you can eat berries all day, but what if there's no berries? There's a new challenge, something else to consider. So there's charts in here, food and water needs for different creatures. If you don't want to have them suffer through exhaustion, because some campaigns you do a lot of overland travel, and maybe you want to give a travel log. Maybe you want to have a skill challenge. Maybe you want to micromanage the random encounters and exhaustion and thirst and things along those lines. Okay. Let's find out what kind of a settlement that we're gonna roll here. There are some charts for general settlement, but I'm looking for the geography first, because that came first, right? You can't build a mountain fortress if there's not a mountain. You can't have a pleasant riverside town if there's not a pleasant river to be besides. Let's do this with our race roller here. We're going to do a 1d10, reroll a 10, and we're going to see what the predominant race living in this small sample village. And then we'll do things like, towns or cities or more complex models first. But we're going to put on our Bob Ross perms, and we're going to paint happy trees in MS Paint. We're going to paint happy rivers or mountains depending on what we're going to roll here. Oh, Shedzar, you got the key. A rare or rarer magic weapon with which you are proficient appears in your hands. The town is a magic item. You know what? If you you can get like the city in a bottle kind of a thing. That kind of instantly sprang to mind. That is definitely rare or rare, right? I'm gonna go to Shadzar on this town. Okay. So Shadzar was pulling a deck of many things on the town to see what might occur here. We're gonna roll our D10. What is the predominant race that lives in this town? A 7. Half-elf. Okay, well, I think that gives us our primary and secondary races that live here. If we go... the town... we can even do something like that, Shadzar. You're like 2 steps ahead of me. But I appreciate you still doing that. Poor destitute village with a city in a bottle or a rich kingdom. I like it. We're going to click on our filler here. And we're going to have some nice... Oh, beautiful. Hopefully that's not burning your eyes, right? Here we have some open plains, beautiful grasslands. This is where, you know, humans are stereotypically prone to settle. Elves, you can get, you know, maybe some wilder wood elves or elves of the plain, but we'll make some wooded areas as well. In fact, even before that, a settlement, how can you have a settlement if there's not a water source of some kind? And so we need to determine what will the water source be. People established this village next to a river, an artesian well, so they don't have to dig, or maybe they just dug and they found they made wells themselves. Maybe it's kind of like my city. We're right up against a lake, well, a great lake, but a big enough lake for a water supply for sure. Someone give me some kind of a water supply that this town will be using. Hey, no. Hey. Okay, that's what I thought. Oh, Babacus, that's very auspicious that you got the Devil, the Tower, and the Moon. That is the major arcana. Archimedes screw pump system with aqueducts. So are they getting trench irrigation? So are the aqueducts built from like mountain rivulets, and so they're coursing down? Or is the trench irrigation coming from a distant lake or something along those lines? But do slaves or animals? That might be a little advanced for a village. We're doing a small scale, like maybe no more than 1,500, 2,000 people. It's like several big families and then like a handful of others. And then, of course, the travelers that you count passing through. Now, got my drawing tool, and let's create something cool here. Okay. Well, all right, so you say, let's do irrigation, right? So this could be an agrarian village. And we can even have, let's fill some stuff in. We'll give it kind of a unique little, there we go. And so, we have some shallower water. And in fact, we'll even say that it gets a little deep in parts. Whatever deep might mean to you. Uh-oh. Something didn't like that. We'll actually paint that blue. I guess that's more of a purple. That's fine. This is your world. I'll do the Bob Ross. We don't have mistakes. We have happy little accidents. There were these native tribes that created these natural aqueducts in the desert, though, I think. The tribe in Africa did it, too. You know what? So, we can even do this. I like what you're saying, and I can see then why they might want aqueducts. We don't really have a scale to this. However, we can take our drawing tool and say that right against there we have here we go. Uh-oh, the desert just took over. There we go. Shedzar says they bring LelVi bags tossed up and poured into troughs to run to the village. So what we can say here is we have a fresh water supply. However, there is a really long or large beach that is between the arable, farmable, livable grassland and the water. And they don't want to build their structures on loose sand because it's blowing, it's drifting, whatever is happening here. And so they do want to build next to the water as best as they can. And I know towards the bottom here, we, the wastelands aren't exactly as, they're not exactly as far away as other places. But let's roll with it. In fact, because we do have some half-elves, we can kind of give the source of, hunting and meat and shelter and lumber is more up here. So that this village or this colony will be built in between, and they'll have to get the water in here. Or even build a canal, because a forest won't just grow not around water. The forest has a water source at some point. It has one as well. Hi, Sportytron. Welcome. To get into a game, you really only need the player's handbook. That has everything you need to make a character, level 1 to 20. Tons of options and features and equipment, and even if you're running a game, it has the rules of the game, and in the back there's even a small little monster section, so you can throw some basic enemies when you're just starting out, if you didn't want to get the DMG or the player's handbook. Right now, Sporty, we are doing a DM session. We did a character creation earlier, and so now we're using those same player's handbook tools for a character, and we're building a region, and we're telling this story, and then we're going to build a village and give it character and go from there. Oh, Sporty Ron, not Sportytron. Sorry about that. On my end, it's showing up in dark blue letters on the night, on like a dark background, so woohoo. Sorry about that. There we go. That's looking classy. Alright, so we have our settlers. As we were primarily theming this village around being half-elves, because we rolled randomly on the race chart, that's going to intrinsically lead us to humans and elves living together, at least as best as they can. Obviously, one is a little bit more of a permanent resident than the other. And it doesn't always have to be, cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria, something like that. Sporty Ron says, I just want to play, not be a dungeon master. If you're looking for games, you can use a virtual tabletop system like Roll20. If you have a speaker, or a microphone to talk, or a webcam. A lot of them have them built in. You can go on the Roll20 forums, and people are looking for games to play in or to run for others. You can also try looking up for a friendly local game store or a comic store. There's oftentimes, if they're selling the product, that they have a community, or even if they don't, they might know players in the community. So that's another way that you can find a game and enjoy it. Yep, Shadzar's given some good advice. So I'm going to keep narrating. So we have this terrain, you know, the world is formed, millions, billions of years pass, whatever, it cools, you know, life comes and goes, water flows, ebbs, etc. You know, life occurs, and at this moment we have settlers who are making their way, maybe they're making their way north to go around this this big water source. They see a water source, and then they see a source of lumber, or maybe even medicinal herbs. It's where, you know, we'll have to imagine there's a lot more woods up this way from what the map is showing. And the pinch is that you have this nice body of fresh water, but there is some like desert or some like open, maybe like wasteland, or just like it's more arid than not. And so we have discussed it in chat, and they're going to have a series of canals that are going to come through. So what biome is this village in, Bob? Because we're going to put it over here in... we're going to end up putting it right over here. I'm going to just draw kind of a crude outline of either the literal or metaphorical walls of the city. And by city, I mean village of whatever. Again, like 2,000 people, and that's on a busy market day, probably. So we've set the geography. We have the tone of the village here. We can get into all kinds of details. For instance, what are the race relations here? In a world where it's not just like the humans and animals, we have all these races, not all of them get along together. Or even if they get along in other places, maybe there's strife for whatever reason in this little region. So we could go and say, all right, well, let's see a characteristic of this town. We'll roll a d20, a 14. There is a tension or a rivalry. So maybe the elves and the humans, they get along, but there's this tension because now you have multiple generations that have lived in this town. You know, maybe it's been around, it's just been a small outpost town or a frontier town for 100, 200 years. And, you know, the elves can remember when the place wasn't even built. And the first generation of half-elves are, you know, they're getting a little long in the tooth. And we've already cycled through a couple generations of humans. And so maybe at this point in time, because you have this longer-lived race of elves, they want to be the ones that are in control of the town because they remember all of this stuff from their hundreds of years of life in existence. Meanwhile, you have humans who maybe they're disproportionately a larger or smaller part of the population say, well, look, we live here too. You have the luxury of time. You're making these decisions with 50-year windows, not 5-year windows. And we should have a voice as well. And so we have a little bit of tension in this town. So we'll use that as a setup. Ruler status, we're going to roll a d20 again. A 1. Respected, fair, and just. So there's tension, and he's trying to keep the peace. Or she. I don't know, we could set up different kinds of governments. Notable traits of the town. Before I roll this, let's see, because there's a couple, not really predictions, but we talked about what the town could be. And I'll favor chat over a random roll, but it's always nice to see if the two end up randomly meeting up together. A 20. Built atop ancient ruins. Ooh, okay. Yeah, I'm not going to draw individual buildings and indicate, Babacus, where the general store is or something along those lines. That's going to be a little bit more micromanaging than what I had hoped to present in this last half of the session. Okay. So maybe, then, right, it was built atop ancient ruins. This can still work with the aqueducts, right? Because we have this beginning village. It started here, and maybe the ruins were even prior to elven knowledge, or at least before the elves turned their eyes in this direction, since it was going to be settled by humans in order to try and coexist. And it seems that no, let's not do that. Let's do this. And it seems that maybe as part of this and through excavation, we have... Oh, isn't this beautiful Bob Ross stuff right here? A network of aqueducts that not only go through where the settlement is, but there's ruins that the village is built upon. Though there's even some that are bringing water deeper into the open plains area in order to make it even more fertile. Maybe some druids lived out this way, or maybe that one maybe is broken. And it was supposed to come down here, and that one's not doing too well. So they're not filled with water. So actually, let's do this. We're gonna change these to gray ones because they're kind of empty stone channels that are broken. We're from the ancient underground aqueducts with Pukoi, right? Am I pronouncing that correctly? And they said, well, someone else lived here. Clearly, there can't be, any ancient demons or undead or anything in these ruins. We're just going to build atop them, or rather, they were covered over time. Maybe the people who lived here before purposely, as a way to seal the evil away. And of course, foolish villagers, they dug too deep, and they awakened Diablo. What is this village known for? It's wines. Ooh. Okay. You know what? Let's open up another document here, and let's keep track of this. Because we can even fuse Shadzar's idea with what we're randomly generating for this character as a town that is going to be in this area here. So we do have some. This is around elves, humans, and they at least get along well enough to make a significant half-elf population. So something happened where there's a lot of this getting together for some purpose. There is racial tension. The ruler is respected, just, and fair. I think it was fair and just on there. It was built on ancient ruins. Known for its wine. And so before doing this, Shadzar pulled a card from the deck of many things, and he ended up getting the it was the gem, right? No, the key, a rare magic item with which your proficient appears in your hands. And so he was saying the town's a magic item, or a poor destitute village with a city in a bottle, or a rich kingdom. And so maybe what we can do is this more rural town village is built atop these old ruins, and they're making these wines. So again, let's get our brain juices stirring. Let's think about it. Let's say that their famous wine is called City in a Bottle. And this is a recipe that they found down in the ruins, and that's also why they had these aqueducts that were coming in from the lake to bring water to these old vineyards, which have been reestablished. And these vineyards are mostly existing down here in the southern part of the of the farmland. Or maybe they require some kind of a berry additive or another, like a spice. It's a spiced wine or something, another herb here. And you know what? This works out super well, right? They're next to a source of sand. Let's see what for glass. It's not just sand. It's saltpeter. Oh heck. Well, I don't know if any of you are glass blowers, but maybe this area is actually rich with what you need to make glass. And so they came up with this, this is their special blend. There's lots of little family wines, but the one true wine, the one that will bind them all, is called City in a Bottle. And it's this old ancient recipe using only the aqueduct water and only the old techniques passed on from this ancient civilization. The magic items turn the water into wine. Oh, silica, potash, and saltpeter. That's right. Okay. Thank you, Shadzar. Magically made? Magic wine. I was talking earlier in my store with some people about old Simpsons episodes, and if any of you have... It's interesting saying this now. If any of you were around during the early Simpsons episodes, there was an episode where Bart goes to France on an exchange student trip, and one of the big bad things is the people who were taking care of him were making wine, but they were adding antifreeze to grape juice in order to somehow hasten the fermentation. And of course that was like the big taboo, and Bart exposed them, but so they were adding magic liquid to grape juice to turn it into wine. The aqueducts could produce magical water of exceptional purity. Yeah, so maybe the villagers don't understand how it works, but they know that the water that comes out of the aqueducts is somehow better. It's purer. Maybe there's like the remnants of an old purify food and drink spell cast on this aqueduct, so that they never get slimy or dirty, and so it's something that they just don't have to maintain because they never thought about it. It's never happened before. So we have built on ancient ruins, aqueducts, and we'll put lingering spell for water purity? Question mark? Cool. You mean when Simpsons was a skit on the Tracy Ullman? Oh my gosh. Or even before they were the Simpsons, and it was Matt Groening's My Life in Hell with the rabbit people. And interesting little known fact, Homer's, like his little squiggle of hair around the back in his ear, shapes are MG for the creator's initials. And there's gotta be some kind of a current calamity. Do we have to make one for this? The current calamity is more like if you all in the audience are adventurers, and I'm your DM, and you're rolling into a town. At some point in time, even a sleepy little village, even if the current calamity is, oh, Bob got drunk again and he's driving his truck through the only red light in town, that's a calamity, right? Women, clutch your purses and, get foo-foo off the streets because, Bob's being reckless again. Delcorn, yeah, the antifreeze in the wine, like in that episode, these like corrupt French people were making wine by trying to mix the grape juice with an accelerant, which was like antifreeze or something, and it was its own thing. Let's see, if you all were rolling up into this village, what would be awaiting you? A 10. A powerful wizard has moved into town. Uh-oh. This could be a rivalry for the City in a Bottle wine that they've been... Nope. Or, you know what? With what we've been talking about, wizard has moved into town. If he doesn't want to seek to corner the wine market, maybe he has no interest in that. What if this wizard wants to study or even take control of the aqueducts, or somehow go into these ruins and fiddle with things, and that curiosity, even if it's innocent, could you have this remote village, and there's this tension already going on, and you have this outsider who's powerful. Maybe there's almost no one in town who can handle him. If you think about it, people living in a little village like this, you'd probably be lucky to have a level 10 character as the sheriff or as some big authority figure out this way. So, in walks even a 12th, 15th level sorcerer or wizard, and they start poking their nose around. Who can stand up to that? Let's see. Bobica says, I pulled a tower for presents, so yes, there absolutely must be a current calamity. And Shadzer says, a snake oil salesman seeks to sell his product and as not only a wine, but a cure-all. So we'll make a side note here. Wants to undercut sales of wine with snake oil. Wants to fiddle with the magic of the ruins / aqueducts. Heard of the secret magic item that turns the water into wine. These are good plot hooks that we're throwing in here, and that could even be what's causing some tension. So if you really want to micromanage kind of what was suggested before, you could roll on this table and you could make a street map. That's something that we could possibly do later. For right now, though, I just want to set the geography. I want to tell a story of this city. I want to get into it. And part of the town isn't just the town itself, but in the region there should be some notable features. A weird, like a spooky hill, the one big tree that's out of place. What is something that is alluring to the area itself? We have water, that you need that for the staple of life, and that has led to a lot of what's happening here. We have these, we should have, my rule of thumb is if you're describing an area, there should be 3 notable features to it of some kind. Whether it's an old ship washed up on shore, so it's something structural, a statue, or it's a great body of water, not just the town well that's keeping the water flowing for everyone. So let's come up with 3 features for this town. I think one of them we can already include would be the aqueducts / ruins beneath. Wizard wants to study or mess with the aqueducts. We can put some kind of a hill or even a mountain somewhere here, or conversely, a pit. Maybe something was there. It's this weird, why does an aqueduct go to, stop at a hard line in line with a hole in the ground? And there's nothing there except a hole. Well, maybe there's water that has, flowed into it. But you have this unusually shaped hole in the ground that an aqueduct goes to. What was there? There's not even ruins left. It could be something interesting like that. What are some features that you would like to see besides the aqueducts and the ruins that are an intrinsic part of this village? There could be something out here also, not just in the town. Again, we could have a hill out to the side. We can have something in this beach, sandy area here, or these not really wasteland wastes. Oh, thank you, Cherries. I appreciate that. Welcome. Come and stay, join the conversation. We're building a town together. We're delving into the DMG, and we're populating and building a town in a region similar to how we build a character out of the PHP. This is a short synopsis because towns have personalities. Towns have their own thing going with them. Welcome. got to have good trees. Yep, Coopers need them for wine barrels. We can make the forest one of the 3 notable features that at least I use as a hard rule. In my campaign, there's an area that there's a forested area in a valley, and as the water has trickled through the mountains and it's picked up these minerals, this mineral-rich water has flowed into a basin, and there's trees that are growing up around this mineral-rich water. And this is a fantasy setting, so over the hundreds and thousands of years that this has happened before the area became colonized, you'd have an oak, but it would be like a living petrified tree, or it would be like an ironwood tree, because the wood itself is living, but it's soaked up this mineral-rich water and has sort of become a part of it in this limited ecosystem. So that was one of my features of the area, is you have this forest of ironwood trees, is what I generically called them, that you'll only find there and for that specific purpose. Let's see, Bobicus asks, where do the elves come from? Is the forest a good feature? The forest can be a good feature, and traditionally that's where elves come from. Like, we're kind of playing to some stereotypes here. So maybe they're wood elves instead of high elves. Maybe there's a thriving elf village nearby. So maybe that does exist in the woods. But we can make the woods one of the features, right? So this town was built on old ruins, as we've generated, and there's these aqueducts that are coming from the fresh water supply through this sandy area, and the people of the village here are able to take the materials present in this sort of rockier area in the sand in order to make glass. So glass blowing is big. You know, you'll need a lot of lumber for hot fires, so they can get that there. And they're famous for this wine. That's the magic of the aqueducts or the ruins has attracted the attention of this wizard who's come in and is posing a threat to the local yokels. Like another Simpsons reference. Cherries, it does sound kind of cool. Hopefully the wizard doesn't cause too much trouble, or if it does, then if you're moving there, then you're clearly an adventurer, and in order to earn a house in this village, you're going to have to convince the wizard to leave. Maybe a hermit living in the desert, a desert druid. We can do that. Maybe because we've rolled that we have this calamity of this singular wizard coming in. It's not that a druid can't be there, but we're already showcasing the attention of a singular person being significant, but is an external threat to the region. So how can we... maybe there is the guy who lives out in these salt flats, or whatever else between the lake and the rolling plains, and this beautiful, Bob Ross would weep tears of joy seeing all these happy trees, and we have some water here. We have some beautiful reflections going on. Kick an old guy out of his house. I've seen up. He'll just take it with him. Cherries, yes. Let's do this, because I can work in a topography lesson for you all as well. We can even say, because remember, these gray stripes here, these are aqueducts that are broken. These used to go towards something, but now nothing is there anymore. And there is a viable aqueduct here. You would think that they'd settle a little further, so there must be something that's getting in the way. And I think what we can do is make this... We can make this a hill. And in fact, you know what? Let's switch up our music just a little bit. I have just the thing in mind for you all. Here we go. Beautiful. We are going to make a hill that exists and goes off the map. Yep, Telcorn, difficult terrain is upcoming. Now, if none of you have used a topographical map, those are the ones that have the series of lines that are in sometimes weird shapes, sometimes uniform shapes. And the scale to those, like there is a scale, you know, 1 inch is a mile or whatever. Though when you make these lines, you're differentiating not just like a lateral scale. You're going into 3D, and so you're saying between every line we've measured, and it's 5 feet of elevation. It's 10 feet of elevation. If it sounds a little loud, I can turn it down some. No problem. We want it in the background anyway. Cherries asks, so is it a river valley surrounded by bluffs or just one hill? I'm going to make this just one hill because we want this hill to be a feature of the area, not the area itself. Is it still really loud, Shadzar? I turned the volume down. Okay, Delcorin's saying good. Now, you guys let me know. So anyway, on a topographical map, you say between every ring is X amount of elevation. So you're building kind of a 3D map on a 2D surface. Which means that if we have something, let's say that every line is 10 feet, and we go like this, the map is a 10-foot high plateau, right? So over here, this is ground level, and then between these two lines is 10 feet, and then it gets flat up here. Or we can say that there's the top of the hill, and so now this is a wide, like this is a gentle slope. This is only 10 feet of elevation for all this distance, and the top caps out at 30 feet. Yep. You're getting cartography lessons. You're getting some, you know, natural history. You know, I know a little about a lot and a lot about a little, and this is one thing that I do know something about. And my MS Paint skills are strong. Like, you know, the U.S. Department of Geography or whatever needs to hire me to make these maps. However, if you want to make a steep hill of some kind, what you do is you go like this. So now, 1, 2. Now this is being a really steep hill because between every one of these lines is 10 feet of elevation. So this is a heck of a climb. Oh, you know, Shadzar, I used GIMP to do a little bit of map resizing because I downloaded I purchased the legal copies from the map maker for Curse of Strahd, and he suggested using GIMP to rescale them. And so I went in there and I was fooling around with that. So now we just have a consistent steep hill. And, you know, this would go around, and obviously we, you know, it would kind of come over here because we're imagining the lake's going to be at sea level or ground level. However, we can combine the two now. Let's go back and say, okay, it's going to come in like this. Now what you've done is you have made a steep side of the hill down here. You know, if we're going north, south, west, east. Well, mix that up if I think I'm coming in reverse to you all. We have a steep area of the hill over here, right? Look at that elevation, right? That's 10 feet between every line. Over here, though, if you approach the hill, this is a nice, gentle slope up to the top. And then, if you want to make something super steep, we can do... Or if not super steep, I might have used the wrong word here. So now, if you look at what we did, this is like a cliff face right here, almost between the break and the aqueducts, if you all can see. You see how close these lines are together? This is almost like a sheer wall coming up because they all converge, right? There's no difference between the points. Yet there's a gradual hill if you come up the sides. So you can manipulate the topography of your land by how you decide to draw these contours to your hills, your mountains, something along those lines. Delcorin, so is I. I'm an 81 baby. Alright, so we want to do something interesting here. We want to make an interesting feature that is going to cut off the logical water supply route here to the village, meaning that they're having to rely more on these aqueducts, which fortunately came in as part of the ruins, which then went on to go help them make this city in a bottle famous wine, which then went on to attract a wizard that's stirring things up. Cultists believe that dark forces have given them aqueducts and are performing dark rituals to keep them powered. That could be a compelling reason too, Bobicus. And Cherries, you're new here. If anyone is new in stream, throw out ideas, throw out story elements. You can go with the things that we've rolled here. Heck, half of this we were just doing because of a deck of many things pull before we really got started. Yeah, more important than topography, please be aware of orienting. Make your maps with north at the top. We'll just have to presume that. I don't have a fancy compass rose to drag on there, but we'll say that north is at the top for ease of access here. So, we'll want something that's going to provide some kind of a steep... It's going to be steep, really steep. Almost like a cliff face. So let's do this. Using the lake here as the boundary, we'll create an odd kind of hill coming down to the south. But what we'll do in order to keep this this face super steep, and we'll make it a little broader over here. In fact, we can even have this come down this way and pick back up this way. And we'll do the same thing again here. And we'll pick it up here. It'll go here. And then we can pick it up here. And even bring another line. Because they don't always have to match up too. There could be a super... Alright, well... Deal with my mouse skills here. I'm not working on a, what is it, a Wacom tablet? And so... The intention, anyway. A cliff face and waterfall. Kind of the same thing, but different. My intention, and that might not be showing up the best on here, is that against this lake, so maybe as if something carved it, but no one knows what, it was scooped out. And so it's tall, and it's almost a sheer cliff against the water. However, whatever this civilization was that was here that built the ruins upon which this city lies, did make an aqueduct going under the mountain, or under the hill in this case, and coming back out into this arable farmland in order to grow their grapes. And so that while it has a sheer side here against the water, making the water mostly inaccessible on this end, there is a gentler slope up. And so maybe here at the top, we can kind of create, there's its own little like plateau or hilltop area. Or, even better, let's do this. Let's put the hilltop over top the aqueduct here. and then we can say that there's a well that goes down from the top of the hill and accesses the aqueduct below. And so we can just put a little, like a little doodad right here. So for a feature, we have some kind of maybe like a ritual hill. There might be some sort of an ancient altar at the top, and then there's this well that goes down into it. And clearly, someone took the time and effort to build an aqueduct through it to get water to the other side. But at the top of this strangely shaped hill, butted up against the water, you have a gentle slope up and then a steep drop afterwards. But you have this little mini plateau that has a well and an altar of some kind. It could have been for druids. It could have been, for cults. We were talking about cults in chat. Something along those lines has happened. Bobicus is saying, and then the wizard coming in threatens the cultists and is dividing the town between those who support the wizard's meddling and those who want to keep the status quo. Cherries replies, hey, that'd be neat. It could be like a town that's really unassuming and everyone's really nice, but then they want to convert you to something. Delcorin says, gotta have them orienting lines so we know the difference between magnetic and true north. That's true. Are we tilting a little bit in this? Bobicus says, why not a cliff face or a waterfall? And a waterfall. If that's the case, then if we wanted a waterfall, we would need some kind of an artificial pump, whether it's mechanical or magical, or an artesian well force. So like it's underground water, right? And it's flowing, but it gets to a point where it's being pushed up. In this case, not even to ground level. It has to come up through the hill, and then it would spill over back maybe into the water supply. I'm not against that idea. This is a fantasy world, right? The magic exists, and it could be a part of that old magic. So it's something that could be entertained. It could be a mysterious waterfall, or the well that's ever flowing or overflowing. So it's not even necessarily a well, but almost like a pipe up. And we could go back and change the aqueduct to something else if we want. This is our world, and if we're training as DMs by this practice, come up with something. But now, to your adventuring friends who you're running into this town, we have at least two notable features. We have, a quaint town, whatever. There's quaint towns are a dime a dozen in D&D campaigns and mods. It's built atop old ruins that include aqueducts. Seemingly, whatever these ruinous people had, glass blowing was a major part of it, right? Because there's this nice forest full of trees for the glass blowers, and Shadzar gave a list in chat of the elements that you need to make glass or clear glass. So that exists here. So they're removed from the water source, but they made the aqueducts to bring the water to them and the arable fields. And so now you have these materials that are in place for doing that. One of these aqueducts is broke because, hey, ruins. And we've made a mysterious hill. Think of this as an adventurer. Is this grabbing your attention? Whoa, what are the old ruins? Are they anything? What about the aqueducts? Is that part of it? Did that come afterwards? What's with this weird hill? Why don't the locals go to the hill? Or why do the locals go to the hill? Or even better, why don't the locals go to the hill, but locals go to the hill? It's a neat idea. It's really good to spice up the adventure. Cultist stuff always gets the crowd going, Cherry says. Ancient rituals and wine, a favorite pastime of the elves. Cultists sacrificing people and pouring their blood into the well. Yeah, that could be, what if the sacrifices were making the area fertile, or that's what was actually empowering the aqueducts? And at this point in the adventure, they weren't used for so long, so the magic was static. But now that it's been populated and used so often, and more people are coming to the town, or if more people aren't coming to the town, they're making more wine than what was ever made. And so those old sacrifices are wearing off. The magic in the aqueducts are starting to diminish. And so that creates a moral crisis, which is excellent for a mod or a campaign. Not just a physical, like you put a goblin with a knife in front of someone, okay, I'm going to put the goblin down one way or the other. What do? This town is built on winemaking. They didn't know it, but the winemaking could have been built on this, on these old, like, druidic, pagan, whatever sacrifices. to the land, to the water, in order to keep things flowing. You have a village of generally good people. Yeah, there's some racial tension between the humans and elves, and then the half-elves that come of that. But now, what do you do? Especially if you're rolling in as an adventurer, you're an outsider, let alone this wizard, whoever this guy is. You know, maybe he even wants to study it and maybe even help, but he just doesn't come across, he doesn't have good bedside manner. What do you say when you find this out? When you find out the secret of the town? Whether they knew it, you know, if they don't know it, that's even better. But if this turns into like a Silent Hill thing, if any of you are familiar, and the townsfolk have actually been secretly sacrificing, or they know that sacrifices will have to be made, but they try kicking the can down the road a lot, that's an adventure right there. How do you solve that? Is there something in the water which they have to appease? There could be. I put dark water sections, so it does get deeper. You know, and we could put topography lines in the water too to show, you know, depth going down. You can do that going up or going down as implied. You know, try and color code things if you wanted to. A lake Leviathan, yeah, something like that. Maybe it's going to get ready to wake up. Cherry says something which dictates the flow of the ducks and aids the fertility of the land. In return, they sacrifice. Yeah, you know, we're talking elder god stuff. We're talking, you know, it could even be warlocks. You know, that were in a great old one pact, and you know, to them, they weren't necessarily even being evil. The people being sacrificed were, they could have even given themselves willingly. Like maybe that's what happened. I mean, I guess no one really wants to die, I presume, but. You know, you get the old, like, Incan or Aztec sacrifices to their sun gods, or if any of you have watched Supernatural, the episode about the Aztec corn god, that was interesting. Delcorn, curse you, Dahlia Gillespie, shakes fist, yeah. Okay, so we're talking maybe something in the lake. So now, here's, this can be our third element. We have the ruins. And the aqueducts are with it. We have this weird hill. Now, let's complete the triumvirate here. What can we do to the lake in order to indicate that there could be something noteworthy there? Is there maybe like a rock spire sticking up out of a lake, but it's igneous rock? But I mean, look. Our local medieval farmers going to know igneous rock from sedimentary rock or sandstone or something like that? Doubtful. But if you have a smart adventurer who knows, oh, hey, that's made by lava and other, you know, bad things. Why is there a lava, you know, a cold lava spike sticking up out of a freshwater lake that has no volcanic activity? That could be a good hook. Oh yeah, Delcorn, Centralia, very spooky place. Maybe so there are ancient ruins, cherries. They're underneath this sort of like generic fantasy town, which I'm not trying to throw that under the bus because we're making a generic fantasy town, but we're setting elements around it to help showcase and feature this town. So what can we put in the lake? That's a natural, artificial, magical feature that it can get attention and maybe cause unsuspecting PCs to go, oh, you know, that's cool. And then later on, when they start realizing, like, they visit the ruins, right? You know, or they see the aqueducts, they're like, oh, that's a good idea. And this wine is great. And then they hear about the ruins and like, ooh, kind of mysterious. Okay, I see where they're doing it. It's connected to the wine. And then they go to the hill and they start going, okay, something's happening. And then they look out to the lake and what? Nikki, thank you for lurking, commenting, and being a part of here. Nikki says, I feel a dark spike rock sticking out of anywhere would catch a lot of attention, maybe even with religious backgrounds as well. If not formal religion, then we can entertain natural, like it's a druidic cult of some kind, or like old gods, or like old, the pagan gods got stuff done. They weren't always nice about it. Or even, oh, Nikki, how about this? And everyone in Memory Lapse, it's talking about a whirlpool that forms on every new moon. Let's blend these ideas together. Okay, ooh, brain juice is flowing. Instead of just a sharp black spire that is sticking up out of the water, we put in let's see, aqueduct. If this is going to be what I think we can paint this as, let's have it be kind of in the middle here. So we're going to put it out a little ways. The adventurers are going to have a boat to come out to it. All right, now, tell me what you think of this. For the longest time, ever since the settling of this place, it was actually just like a small but kind of steep island. People knew that there was like black sand and black rock there, but vegetation grew out of it, right? Birds populated it. It was like a little wildlife sanctuary. No one went out there because there's nothing really there. It was just unique. Like, yeah, if you go out there, it's covered in green stuff and vines and moss. There's this black sand, but aside from maybe people going out there to get black sand for the rare bottles of like the super good city in a bottle wine, it was just this weird little quirky thing. Like, it's a little island in the lake. Who cares? Well, if we're setting this up to be that the old magics of this place are starting to die off, then this spire, this entity or whatever, this conduit to an otherworldly force, a deity, like a warlock pact holder, something like that. So the trees have been kind of shedding, right? The island is balding, the vegetation's falling away, and as that happens, it reveals more, black clumps of basalt or obsidian and pumice and all these other igneous rocks, and so suddenly you get this growing, black mark out in the middle of the lake. And so, the adventurers have come in, and maybe they just stumbled through on their way to someplace else. And so, there's still enough green on there that, you can see the black, but it's still, you just glance, you're not here, you're not native. You're like, okay, it's just kind of a weird island, there's some trees, whatever. Or they come in at night and it doesn't really even matter. And then, they see it the next day, but there's other things going on. Because as a DM, you got to dangle, this is what's going on. But every once in a while you go, hey, over here, hey, and you draw their attention away, and then you kind of do like a little whoop, and things change. And then when they come back, if you have diligent players, they go, hey, now, wait a second, that was like that. Why is there now, less vegetation overnight? Why did trees fall into the lake, kind of a thing? And so now we have these natural features of the land. It's made it interesting, not just an open plain with a sandy beach and a little quaint village that makes wine, and it has the standard racial strife that you'd find in any like multiracial town, even a singular racial town. It has an industry, it has people, it has a compelling force, it has an adventure waiting to go. We could write a mod about what we just did in chat and MS Paint over the course of what, an hour or so? Sorry, I missed some chat here. That somehow lets you speak with the Leviathan, and the heroes can potentially form a new covenant with the beast. That's true. Maybe a beast was trapped by these ritualists, by the spire, and the spire's crumbling, right? Because this energy that they were pouring into it to keep the beast asleep is weakening. And so, yeah, maybe, and we can even say if they weren't outright like an evil cult. Oh, thank you, Nikki D. Thank you for following. So even if they weren't an outright evil cult, they did it because there was a Lake Leviathan. And yeah, it sucks having to sacrifice people, but they did it for the greater good. And now things are happening, things are stirring. Cherry says, yeah, that's awesome. It'd be a subtle way to let them know what's up. Memory Lab says there's a marble rock sticking up out of the water where the Leviathan appear, where warlocks go and make their pact. Yeah, instead of druids, or even druids, right? You can speak an oath to a tree, think, Game of Thrones or whatnot. Maybe this actually was a warlock town. This was, even the druids, while it's natural here, there's unnatural arcane things going on. So this could be people are more familiar with druids and warlocks, which on a meta level as a player makes it more mysterious. Because how many of you, even if you're an experienced D&D player, how many of you have rolled a warlock before? You get barbarians and fighters and even wizards that are way more known and popular. So that adds a meta layer of mystery, let alone an in-character one. So, it raises suspicions on it. So yeah, it could be a packed idea. Corin says the music got louder again. It's good music, but it got loud again. I don't know. I didn't adjust any of the settings on my end, so if it's been low and now it's not, I couldn't tell you what's going on, Delcorin. Do you think that hill is close enough to the water for people to sacrifice themselves? Yes. The intention of the topography here was that it's accessible from this side here, right? Because look, this is only like 20 feet of elevation. And I guess I could shore it up a little bit here, but there's like a path up, and we could even like make it kind of a weaving path if we really wanted to. Then there's this top, this stark top that sticks up with the well and the altar. But the point was, well, I'm pointing like my webcam you can see me through my webcam. The point was where the paint bucket is here. This is a sheer drop to the lakeside, and so people could have been. Maybe they were drained into the well and then their body was cast into the water to feed the fish or ultimately feed the Leviathan or whatever was living in there. Or they were just dropped down the well and, kind of water forces or something took them out into the lake. Memory says it's good. I can turn down the music a little bit more. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe something happened here. I'll put it down to like 30%. Okay. So yeah. Now, you as the DM, because remember, we're doing this with our DM caps on. We're doing a DM session. You have a story to tell. You have natural elements, supernatural elements, expected elements, right? Quaint countryside village. There's the superficial, it's in the grasslands, and there's trees nearby, and yeah, there's water a little ways off, and it's kind of quirky that they have this, like, open, like, salt area or like, beach. But whatever, you get in, you're like, oh yeah, so that's why they're there. Look at the water, and it totally makes sense why they're making wine here. I get it. Nothing's wrong. We're just gonna pass through. This is some little, podunk town, and then, boom, you as a DM, you hit them with that adventure hook, and suddenly, their eyes open, and this simple little MS Paint map exploded with adventure, with things to explore. You could run these aqueducts, like especially the one under the hill. That's an underwater and or like a sewer area or like an underground level. You can say that some of these aqueducts, there could be a mechanical or an arcane pump of some kind bringing water up, or they're just sort of irrigation trenches that kind of end up being aqueducts because maybe the topography of the land, as we're going from the lake, maybe for some reason this is a high point as the shore, and then if we were to draw the topography lines, it's actually going downhill, with the exception of the hill to the south, which is coming up and making an even starker rise, a higher rise to the water. And so the aqueducts are raised, but they're raised only because the town is a little bit down. When's this campaign happening? I want to keep up with it. At some point with you all, after I get things set up, like an official schedule, Nikki, I'll do some kind of an open campaign with you all in chat. I haven't quite figured out how to do it yet, but it would almost be like a Twitch plays D&D style. I have to continue thinking about it, and I have to establish a regular schedule here first. But I can open this stuff up. So in the meantime, we're doing creative thinking. Nikki, if you weren't here yesterday, we made an amazing story together with two characters that we randomly pulled from the ether through this document over here, where we just rolled up random characters, and we had two that were almost like two sides of the same coin. Thank you, Cherries. And the story we wrote for them, we could have pounded out a 350-page novel or even a series of novels that span romance and intimacy and violence and intrigue, and that's why I love you all as an audience, as being receptive, open-minded, as being participative. yeah, whatever, you get it. In chat, you know, I have ideas, sure. I've been doing this for a while, but so have you. Even if you're new, you're a storyteller intrinsically. You're a human being. Well, there is that thing where on the internet nobody knows you're a dog. Nobody. But we're all storytellers here, and your feedback's just as important. I'm doing this not for you, but with you, and it's the same back back for me. You guys and girls could be and dogs, I guess, could be doing anything else right now, but you're here, you're typing, you're interactive, you're watching and listening, and I super appreciate the time that you're spending. Let's see. Memory Lap says maybe there's some alliance or agreement between the Warlocks and Druids. The Druids allow the Warlocks to make their pact with the Leviathan as long as they don't break the holds. Okay. Okay. So, yeah, that's a possibility, too. In storytelling, we would not want it to get too convoluted, though, unless you're making the entire campaign about exploring this area. There are good ideas that we want as DMs, and oftentimes we can make them work together. It depends on how long you want to run in that area. If you want a little one-shot, you know, kind of bang something out or impress your players that, hey, I gave some thought to this area. And they say, oh, yeah, that's cool. But we got to go meet the king further to the north. So we're going to take the road through town. We'll buy a bottle of wine. Hey, thanks, everyone. And suddenly you're there and you're like, I had this whole plot. What? No, get back here. I'm going to put you on railroad tracks right now, this instant, party. Yeah, side quest potential. You can always, like, you can leave that open. Like, you have an NPC saying, "Oh yeah, there used to be druids around here too," and so maybe that would take them into the woods. You know, yeah, elves live there, but maybe even the elves themselves aren't druids, or they've only heard of them. But that can accent the main story of what we're telling here, which is you have this ancient force and everything, so it could offer an enhancement, but it's not necessarily required, because we already have the focus, and then we have a route that you can take through it, and then we put some scenery off on the sides. Wow. This, and then of course we've thrown in a meddling wizard of some kind. That maybe isn't an evil wizard, but is still meddling in this small town's affairs. And, or maybe the wizard's been around for a while and everything was working until the wizard touched something he shouldn't have touched, cast a spell where he shouldn't have, and that's when things started going to pot quickly. Oh, by the way, for those of you who are newer in here, you can check the chat commands. If you've been lurking for a while, you've been earning some experience points, which is an in-channel currency that you can have some fun with. You can challenge other chatters to a duel by typing in !duel, space their name, space the amount you want to put up for the duel, and they can accept or deny. Or you can do something cool, like spend your points on drawing a card from the deck of many things, such as this. Oh my goodness. Well. Babakis says maybe the Leviathan cares for the creatures of the lake and that it's a primary motivation. True. You can play off of our instincts, you know, as human players, or even filtered through the characters. But it's a big, you know, watery beast thing. You could make it an aboleth. You could make it just a big fish, or like a freshwater whale or something. Maybe it's malevolent, or it's just intelligent but kind of neutral. So it acts but not necessarily. It could be a caretaker, but it demands something. These are now just different ways that we can put flavors or spices on the story of this place. Wow. You all are amazing. I mean, look at this. We have kind of a janky MS Paint map, and we've created, if not a campaign, we've created at least a solid mod that, you know, you could do in a couple sessions, or you could have it last a couple levels if you wanted to use milestones. Cherries, I know it doesn't sound like much, but this has really made my night. Thank you. Well, speaking for me, I'm glad that you came in here, and I'm glad that this has made your night and improved it. That's exactly what this stream is supposed to do. I put this in chill streams for a reason. You know, this is a small, like, it's an intimate storytelling time that we all have input, and we're just trying to figure this out together as people who are seasoned veterans, as newbies, because we all have ideas. And as I run D&D, it's ROLE playing, not ROLL. We can talk about mechanics and crunch and rules as written, rules as intended until we're blue in the face. That's fine. D&D is a storytelling game, and we are storytellers. Intrinsically, this is a very deeply held, passionate belief of mine, if you couldn't tell. We are intrinsically storytellers as human beings. That is our distinct gift or evolutionary result, or whatever you want to subscribe to. We have this some way, somehow. This is one of the best ways that we can come together and use it to entertain each other, to share our experiences, because we're all pulling off of real life stuff. You know, we all have knowledges of things, of different disciplines, of different vocations. We all have different education levels and social experiences. So you as an author, right, if you want to DM, you can write a campaign, but if you're doing it in a vacuum, you're only going off of what you know. And what you may know could be absolutely prodigious. But what do your players know? You could have a doctorate in geography, and you could put, you know, my clearly superior topographical map skills to shame. Can your players read topographical maps or understand subtlety? Like, if you see a topographical map and then there's a line going through it that's indicating an aqueduct, are they thinking that somehow it's going up and over? Are they making the reasonable deduction that it's going through? Or I have an engineer in my gaming group, and I am not an engineer. I can describe things, but when you need to suddenly describe how something works in detail, or and I say this smiling because he's an awesome dude, and I'm so happy to have him in the group. But his character fault is that he overcomplicates things, like a character as his character. And being an engineer, he has a knowledge of complex things, and he has a ball as his character of coming up with convoluted, like Rube Goldberg style plans or physical things to come together. So it's important that we share this, because I know things you don't, you know things I don't, and now together we've made this, and we can all take the same idea. We can all go run this mod that we just made, and we will get vastly different results, even if the play group is exactly the same. Even if it's the same, because you, as the DM, as the storyteller, are going to highlight different things, are going to make adjustments. So maybe you like druids. Well, druids and warlocks in this mod, you don't get to go either way. You can replace it. You want a more natural campaign? Go druids. You want a more, supernatural, spoopy campaign? Go warlocks. That kind of a thing. You have all of the elements here, and all we did was roll a couple d20s out of a chart, which we didn't really have to do, but we did. We took some meta knowledge from this deck of many things that a couple of people rolled before I put light green on the map, and we just built and built and built. This is us. So, so let's see. I'm just listening to what the tarot tells me. Hey, you can just go rando, man. Bob, because you can pull cards and read them. That's a fun way to play sometimes too. In fact, for my campaign, I made a set of mass combat rules that no dice are used. It's all peeling cards out of a deck, and it's kind of like playing a fancy game of war. I don't have the rules up just on here, but we go off of cards and card readings to dictate the fortunes of battle. So instead of single characters, they're leading squads of like hundreds of people, and things get out of your control more when you have more people to take care of. So I reflected that by, instead of using dice and personal modifiers on a specified character sheet, you have broad abilities based on your character, but you're at the whims of the fate that you draw. Nikki, thank you for the compliment. Hey, I'm just a dude. I've done this a while. I'm happy to share with you all. Fighter, class skill, intelligence, knowledge, engineering. Something else that I encourage and is something for you to think about. In addition to the normal skills on a character sheet, I have my players write down what I call a background skill. Backgrounds exist as their own thing in 5th edition. But I'm talking about a specific skill. This is something they did as, before they were adventurers. And it's something specific. It is map making, not just cartography or something broader. They are good at a task. They are good at a job. How did they earn money? Did they, shovel poop out of stables? Did they sell newspapers? Were they a town crier? So they write down something specific, and then I give them advantage on that skill check. Not proficiency, but I give them advantage. And the beautiful part is, if they can figure out ways to route an interaction through that skill, let's say that they were a newsie, right? You could run that through, depending on what the situation is. You could say, hey, can I run it through charisma? Because I really want to try and sell something to someone. And I've experienced being this little newsie, 10 years ago as my kid was growing up. And, oh yeah, that makes sense. Or then, they're being chased through a dense city. And he says, can I use my newsie skill out of Dex? And so, yeah, that makes sense, right? Because you're a little kid, you're used to running through, going around corners, hiding under boxes. And so you get to roll that at advantage because you're filtering your experiences through what you had before. And again, it's all storytelling, it's character development. Some adventurers were born with a sword in their hand, but the vast majority of them weren't. They were, they worked in taverns, they were farmers, they were thrust into positions of hard decision through tragedy. What prepares you for that? So hopefully, you know what we need to do though? If nothing else, we need a name for this town. We've talked a lot about, it could be Lakeside, it could be Forestside, it could be Hillside, because those are 3 features and they're beside it all. It could have a completely weird name. It could have an elvish name, a human name. With everything we've discussed about, throw out some names. What would this brown blotch be? What is this town of maybe 2,000 people? Elves and humans and half-elves living there. Primarily it's agrarian, with a focus on winemaking and glass blowing. It's by a lake, it's by a hill, it's by a forest. It has, you could call it maybe Spire Rock, right? Because there's the weird island that until recently was just covered in, in ferns and vines and whatever. Big Break is offering Comran's Scar. Is Comran, to you, Big Break, maybe a founder of the city, like the lead pilgrim or the lead colonist who came out this way? Or that's what, is the Scar, is that what you want to name the Spire, but the town named itself after the Spire? And still, I'm willing to entertain what you're saying, Big Break. Other people, come on, throw names out there. Whatever. This is, Bob Ross would call this a bravery test. Type words out. What do you got? Come on. Cherries. Wine and glass blowing. Huge blowout bonanza emporium. Or what? Wagbaby for short. They pay someone to stand outside the road to town and look like one of the inflating, everything must go, all wine casks must be sold. Memory Lapse says Druids Grove. Big Break is offering another name, Polyandria. Is this is that random, or is that kind of a wink and a chuckle towards another town that was founded by pilgrims in a more western region of the United States? The Escapement of Talos. Lellywellen's Folly. that could be interesting. Lellywellen. I like it. Isabeu. I'm gonna write these down so we can review them here. Ritual Hill, and then we have this balding spire rock in the lake is the feature. Okay, we have Comran's Scar. We have Wag Bubby. Druids Grove, which, you know, it sounds quaint, like one of those like suburban like detachments or whatever, and like, oh, it's like Angel's Path and Druids Grove and all this. Meanwhile, it harbors some, you know, horrible monster living in the sewers or something. Polyandria. Lellywellen's Folly. Follies are always fun because, you know, like, oh, you can't live out here. You know, that's folly to do so, and then they establish themselves. The Escapement of Talos. Isabeu. The modification to Comran's Folly. These can be other points in the town too. Yeah, I mean, we're throwing out just names of things, and we can use every name that's on here, honestly. But, you know, what would be like the town name as one of the points of interest? New Kira's Valley. No, that's fine. It's fine, Cherries. No. How can there be bad names? This is a fictional, non-existent place that we're pulling into reality. Anything can be anything. I mean, you could call it, I don't know, you could call it Brown Patch. Because that's what it is. Brown Patch sounds like a city name, and why not? We can go back and, you know, we can kind of massage the plot a little bit and say, well, it was called Brown Patch because of whatever reason. Maybe the ruins caused there to be not a lot of grass, and so it was already brown. But that's what drew their attention to building there, because they're like, why is that brown? I'm going to investigate. Oh, there's already foundations of buildings. Boom, we're going to build there. Uh-oh, Cherries. Something happened. Rip indeed. Oh, caps filter. That's what got you. Too many caps. Oh, rest in pepperonis. Delcorn says, I can see Cormoran being the name of a former mayor, governor, whatever, and their folly was changing some local law that has since led to the town's decline. Cherries did mention, though, before the quick little timeout of Big Ol' Lake. Yeah, Bobicus, Cherries was stunned for one round by my bot because of too many capital letters. See, here's the fun, also, Cherries, and to build some confidence. We could give the lake, you know, that could be Lake Isabeu, and it has this, you know, kind of elvish, you know, because, like, French romantic languages are kind of stereotyped with Elven, and we have, you know, Lake Isabeu, and meanwhile, you got the people in the field who are, you know, picking the grapes and stomping them into wine, and they just call it Big Ol' Lake. And there's probably more people who call it Big Ol' Lake than Lake Isabeu, but that doesn't sound as good on the government map. So they call it Lake Isabeu, but everyone in town just calls it the Big Ol' Lake. It's perfectly viable, and in fact, it adds a sense of humor. And so it's not all like super serious fantasy mode, and you're in my world and you can't do anything. Nah, forget about it. Bobicus says B.O. Lake. I don't know, a lake of bees kind of sounds scary. Brig Break says, Comrade had good ideas to start, but was soon bribed and became corrupt. I have it still set to show stuff like that. The lake was changed by the bribery. The local presence was something to gain. I got the name from Lady Hawk. I'm not familiar with Lady Hawk offhand. Memory Lab says, maybe that would tie into the story as well. The name of the town is Druids Grove because it was once an area that was actually a grove. Humans moved in and claimed it for themselves, deforesting the area. The Druids, being naturally peaceful, moved further deeper into the forest. Elvish warlocks eventually moved in as well because of the supernatural magic in the area. That seems viable. Algamria. And whenever you're coming up with names, especially if it's for more abstract things like valleys or states or whatever, this is going to be a really easy trick that you can do. And your players will probably not know the difference. Look around you, find something, and clip letters out of it. For instance, so here's one of these really cool, this is a zesty blood orange Diet Coke. So this was on my desk. I'm looking around and I need creative inspiration. Iatco. That's a name. It could be a name of someone. It could be the name of the town. Welcome to Iatco. That sounds fantasy, right? Come on, Iatco. Who names the town Iatco? Well, fantasy people name it Iatco. Oh, here's another one. Let's see, I think I did that correctly. Litsier. That sounds elven, right? Oh, fancy. Litsier. This is the village of Litsier. Welcome. You know, this is a dwarven place, or not dwarven. This is an elven place. Welcome to Litsier. You want to know what Litsier is? Where did I get Litsier? And here we thought that this was just a randomly generated elven village, right? Litsier. Or Pure Breeze. Oh, look at that! Gentle rolling hills, a lake. There's probably a wind that comes off of it, and you get this romantic, this wonderful, beautiful. The founders stopped here because of the sweet breeze, this pure breeze coming off the lake. Maybe even fragranted by the exotic flowers living on that weird island. And they call the place Pure Breeze. And you know what? So does Renews It. Now we're going 4D. We don't even have topographical 3D. We're incorporating smells into it as well. And look, this is just sitting on my desk. You didn't know that. If I was running a campaign for you and I told you this place was called Pure Breeze, would you accept that? You're like, oh yeah, I can see that. That's a Pure Breeze place. In my silliness here, I missed a little bit of chat. Let me catch up real quick with you here. Lady Hawk is one of the guilty pleasures in life. Really good movie from the 80s. Algamria sounds like a disease. Yeah, that one. Maybe. Captain of the Guard falls in love with a highborn woman that the bishop loves. She loves the guard, so the bishop curses them to always be together, eternally apart. He's a wolf by night. She's a hawk by day. Okay. Atomier? Well, that's my 4 years of high school French kicking in. Did you want it to be Atomier or like Atomier? We speak the king's English around these here parts, and I don't take kindly to them's what don't take kindly. Oh yeah, there you go, Bobicus. Welcome. Welcome to Pure Breeze. It's a wonderful village, and to the south, you'll find Ampute Hill. Or Amput, I guess if you really want. There you go, you have a computer. Aquafina, yeah. Or then, yeah, that could even go down to Offina. Offina, that sounds cool. Or you could even say Aquafina. I mean, like, it's a little bit more obvious because that's a super popular brand, right? People are like, oh yeah, the bottled water. But at the same time, if you're going into a game and psychologically, mentally, you are in the zone of accepting fantasy, you can say Aquafina, and everyone might go, haha, okay, but then you still get into it, and you're like, oh yeah, Aqueducts, Aquafina, I totally get it. This is an aquatic place, right? You got the aqueducts, you got the big old lake, because that's what all the locals call it, big old lake, because it is a big old lake. Really easy to remember. I like these people. They're simple. I can relate to them. So there you go. You got some fun tips. We have a lot of names for things. I gotta scroll up real quick and get something here. That was... Well, okay, I'll have to darken that up. But Cherries, I wanted to pull the full name of what you're saying. So, yep, there we go. So looking through this here, Comran's Scar, Comran's Folly, Wogbabe, Wine and Glass Blowing, Huge Blowout, Bonanza Emporium, Druids Grove, Polyandria, Lellywellen's Folly, which kind of went into Comran's Folly, the Escapement of Talos. That almost sounds like a good name for the hill, because it's like an escarpment, right? And if we're playing with the god Talos, that kind of goes into like Tempest, and that might even thematically kind of blend into what was going on at that place. Isabeu, Nukira's Valley, Big Ol' Lake, Algamria, Iatko, which turns a zesty blood orange color in the sunset. Fun fact. Litsie, Pure Breeze, Atomie, Umpute. Talos is in all things, my child. But what happens if he recognizes you as a god, Delcorin? So, I'll tell you what. I'll have this be homework for me. I will get ready. I love the way you say Pure Breeze. Pure Breeze. We have a lot going here. I'm going to save this. I'm going to go to an AFK screen real quick. Everyone, get up, stretch, pet your cat, get an Iatko or some tea, and do whatever. I think I'm going to take a little bit of a break here, and I'm going to do the same. And we're going to come back, and we're going to finish out tonight's session with, we can do some Q&A. I can answer questions. We can do more tips and tricks as a DM or as a player. If you have questions on things, I'll be happy to answer it. We can reopen the PHUBA, the Player's Handbook, PHB, and we can delve into some specific things. Like if you're like, oh, what are some other feats that are out there? Or I'd really like to build something. We can spend a little bit of time together doing that, or some storytelling, and go from there. All right, so I'm gonna go AFK a bit. I'll type in chat here when I start getting ready, and then I'll turn the mic on, and then eventually I'll turn the camera back on. So everyone, stretch your legs, do some calisthenics or whatever you need to do, and I will see you in about 10-ish minutes. Okay.